Hello, my name is Amy Adams. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Biohealth Innovation at George Mason University, and will be moderating this panel today on real estate and resources in the biohealth capital region. At Mason, I support about 300 faculty and thousands of students who are doing innovative biohealth research across disciplines and also commercializing those technologies into new products like digital platforms, diagnostics, and products to enhance vaccine efficacy. I think I share in the sentiment with my peers across institutions in DC, Maryland, and Virginia about the great opportunity for our companies to grow and thrive in the biohealth capital region. And I'm very excited about the panelists here today who are experts in real estate and the biohealth ecosystem that will talk about what they are doing to help accelerate growth and really make our vibrant community for our companies, institutions, and many more. All right, I would like to start by introducing our panelists. Let me first start with James Matten. He is the Director of Progress Labs at Matten. James.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you very much for including me in today's panel. It's a pleasure and honor to be here alongside you, Matt and John, obviously discussing the excitement and growth surrounding the life sciences in the capital region. For those, as Amy just said, my name is James Matten with the Matten Companies. For the last 45 years, the Matten Companies has been a leading real estate developer in the Mid-Atlantic, primarily of high bay warehouse and lab and biomanufacturing space, with a centered focus in the I-270 corridor of Montgomery and Frederick counties. A little over a year ago, in the height of the pandemic, we saw an incredible rise in demand for lab and biomanufacturing space, driven primarily by Operation Warp Speed and, of course, the maturing life science sector in Montgomery and Frederick counties. In response to that, we formulated a team of experts along with some existing greenfield assets to launch Progress Labs. Progress Labs is a standalone entity which is intended to facilitate the delivery of over 2 million square feet of spec lab and biomanufacturing ready space along the I-270 corridor. Progress Labs going forward will be my sole focus as its director. We'll get into a little bit more later about what we're delivering, but again, thank you for including me.
Thank you so much for participating. And next we have Matt Brady. He is the Vice President of Shear Partners.
Hi, great to be here. Yeah, Matt Brady with Shear Partners. So Shear Partners is a commercial real estate services firm. We have a unique focus in scientific facilities and have really since the inception of the DC metro life science market. I was fortunate early in my career to mentor under a lot of the kind of pioneering minds at Shear Partners around lab space, and over the past 18 years, I've really honed my expertise in not only the nuts and bolts of what makes scientific facilities and translating functional requirements into facilities, but also the actual market itself. And so I get called upon from tenants and landlords and developers for that expertise to help them facilitate great scientific facilities and to help grow the market. So really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Matt. We're really excited that you've joined us today. And next we have John Newby. He is the CEO of the Virginia Biotechnology Association.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me on this panel. I am indeed John Newby here at Virginia Bio, headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. Virginia Bio is a trade organization, the trade group for Virginia's biotechnology industry. Our mission is to support innovation and growth in all of Virginia's biotech ecosystem. We have an $8 billion biotech industry here in Virginia, over 2,000 life science companies and entities supporting over 24,000 jobs. Lots of activity, even more, as Matt and James mentioned, because of the pandemic and all the activity around that. Virginia is no different. Lots of activity happening. I'm really glad to be here today to tell you a little bit about what's happening.
Thank you so much, John. James and Matt, I want to start with you both. You are adding some really terrific commercial lab spaces to the biohealth capital region. Can you take us in a little dive and tell us about those? James, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Yeah, across the region, given all of the recent demand, there are numerous projects that are coming about. But I'm mostly versed in what we are delivering with Progress Labs, so let me talk about that for a minute. As I mentioned earlier, Progress Labs is facilitating the delivery of over 2 million square feet of spec lab and biomanufacturing ready space, primarily in the I-270 corridor of Montgomery and Frederick counties. The exciting part of that, of our deliveries, is that currently right now, we have 1.5 million square feet currently under construction. Our first project, which is called Progress Labs Center 85, is 715,000 square feet located in South Frederick off of Route 85 and Interstate 270 in the heart of Frederick County. This project is delivering right now as we speak. As some of you may have heard, our first tenant in this project is Ellume. Ellume won a contract with NIH to manufacture at-home test kits to detect COVID-19. Ellume will be fully operational by the end of the year in their 200,000 square foot U.S. headquarters manufacturing facility, which is really exciting because the reason for delivering all the spec space that we're delivering is companies that are winning contracts related to Operation Warp Speed or anything else actually have facilities to go to. This project also has 276,000 square feet of additional space available now to whoever needs it or whoever's coming down the pike currently as we speak. The next project that we're delivering on is 215,000 square feet of, again, lab and biomanufacturing ready space. This project is known as Progress Labs Riverside. It's on the northeast side of Frederick. It will be delivering this coming spring, so spring of 2022. It will be available for occupancy. Just after that, in the summer of 2022, we'll be delivering our first of 2 Montgomery County projects. This project is known as 700 North Frederick Avenue in Gaithersburg. It sits at the intersection of Montgomery Village Avenue and Interstate 270. This project will be 500,000 square feet of, again, lab and biomanufacturing ready space. And it's coming, as I said, it's coming online summer of 2022. Our second Montgomery County project will be in Germantown at what we've renamed as was once Milestone Business Park, is now Milestone Innovation Park. This will be another 550,000 square feet of spec lab and biomanufacturing ready space. It's going to be delivering a little bit later in summer of 2023. But in addition to all this spec space we're delivering, we have additional build-to-suit opportunities for up to 2 million square feet adjacent to NCI's National Frederick Laboratory at Riverside Research Park in Frederick. So as you can see, we're trying to meet the demands by getting out ahead of it and having projects and spaces ready as tenants need it.
That is quite an impressive list of facilities, and I'm sure you will have them full before they ever open. Really exciting, and thanks so much for making this happen in the Biohealth Capital region.
We hope.
Next, Matt, can you share about what you have at Shear Partners coming online?
Sure. Yeah, it's an exciting time. Following up with what James was saying and everything that they're doing, I thought it would be good just to use a couple examples of some things that we're helping to advise on. The life sciences team here at Shear Partners has several projects across the BioCapital Health region. And so really to understand the BioCapital Health region, the core of it is in the Life Sciences Center, the Shady Grove Life Sciences Center. And so Alexandria, we're fortunate to have them as a landlord in this market just because they're really chartered to create, develop, and maintain lab space. And so they've been a big catalyst for the growth here, but we're also seeing the market expand. And so Madden is a great example of that, where they're really grabbing a hold of a growing market and hopefully able to provide some solutions for the tenants out there. In addition, you go as far north as Frederick, really, and we're seeing in the New Horizon project, which is 7495 New Horizon. This is tailored a little more towards small and growing companies. And so it's unique in that market where you just haven't had a good supply of lab space, but shows how the market's starting to evolve. in Frederick specifically. And then moving a little further south, south of the current hubs really, but we're starting to see more and more commercial lab operations moving into the North Bethesda market. So Pike and Rose is an interesting opportunity right now where 935 Pros is going to be a 260,000 square foot ground up development trophy class building for a headquarters that's really located right in a huge amenity base and right on the Red Line Metro. So again, unique offering, different from what we've seen else at other times in this market. And then, finally, I'll cross over into the Virginia market and Manassas, where Manassas has an incubator that's currently sponsored by the county. It's actually an accelerator, and they've had some great success there in growing companies that need to graduate. And so we're working on the Northern Virginia Bioscience Center, and that's a 32,000 square foot stuck-built lab space ready to go for 1,200 to 5,000 square foot tenants so that they can just grow right out of the accelerator and into that space. And so exciting projects all over the area.
Thank you so much, Matt, for this really impressive work. And I'm possibly biased, but really excited also about the Northern Virginia Bioscience Center, as George Mason University is located adjacent that on our SciTech campus. So very excited for that to open in spring of 2022. Next, I want to move to John. Beyond Northern Virginia, there's been a lot of new capacities in Virginia for life science facilities. Can you tell us about some of those across Virginia?
Absolutely. I'm definitely happy about what's happening in your neck of the woods, as Matt's just described, but there's some other things happening in Virginia as well. Just this past, or 3 weeks ago, in early August, Virginia Beach Bio actually announced the grand opening of some accelerator space. As some of you may know, Virginia Beach is indeed the largest city in Virginia, and they're located smack dab in the largest and most populous region in Virginia. Proximity to Eastern Virginia Medical School, Centera Healthcare, Old Dominion University, who themselves are partnering to spin out more biotech companies with particular focus and emphasis on biocomputing and AI. They just opened, Virginia Beach did, accelerator space at Virginia Beach Bio, downtown Virginia Beach on August 4th. It's a 5,700 square foot space, wet lab space, dry lab space, BSL-2 capable lab space. Great resource for the companies that are coming out of that region and need space to move into in order to continue to grow their companies. Another spot is Richmond, Virginia, right here in the capital of Virginia, where we're located. On the campus of Virginia Commonwealth University in downtown Virginia is Virginia Biotech Park. It's a 34-acre life science campus here in Richmond. Currently, it has 1.2 million square feet of lab space, office space to support biotech. In the future, we're really excited about this new construction. I believe it's going to start next spring for approximately 100,000 square feet of new lab space for all of the growth that's happening here, not just at Virginia Commonwealth University, but in the entire region with the growth in our biotech industries. All customizable lab space, spec build for customers. And I know Virginia Commonwealth University and the Biotech Park is really happy and excited to provide that resource. There are a couple other jurisdictions in Virginia who are currently analyzing their regional needs for lab space. One region is the greater Charlottesville area, where University of Virginia and the Charlottesville BioHub are located. Lots of activity happening there. Lots of need and demand for lab space. They're currently analyzing that need. They do already have funding for build, but haven't yet put out the specs for what they're going to build. And also the Roanoke, greater Roanoke, Blacksburg, Lynchburg area that really is focusing on what's coming out of Virginia Tech and its partnership with Carillion Clinic and spinning out great biotech companies in that region. So lots of exciting growth that's happening, and we're really excited to tell you about it.
Thanks so much, John.
Amy, can I just throw a shout out to John?
Please.
We'd be happy to hear that we just signed a deal for 80,000 feet with Granule Pharmaceuticals in Manassas at our newest project at Parkway 66. So it's a great group for the continued growth of the life sciences through Virginia.
That's outstanding, James. Thanks for that great news.
Sure.
Indeed. John, can we laser focus in a little bit on Richmond? It's been really amazing to see Flow Corporation and the Medicines for All Institute success at VCU. So would love to hear what's going on in Petersburg, and will we see a new pharmaceutical manufacturing hub there?
I think that's the goal. So as you know, the U.S. is investing in domestic production of APIs to reduce foreign dependency and make life-saving drugs more readily available right here in the United States. Last year, as Amy mentioned, a great company that spun out of Virginia Commonwealth University by the name of Flow Corporation, currently located in Petersburg, they received a $354 million BARDA grant with potential to grow with options to more than $800 million for the production of APIs for essential medicines right here in the United States. Flow was created as a social welfare company and will create the U.S.'s first strategic active pharmaceutical ingredient reserve. It's a long-term national stockpile of pharmaceuticals and ingredients that'll hopefully reduce our country's reliance and dependence on foreign countries for its drug supply chain. Flow's partnered with two other companies, Ampac Fine Chemicals for producing the APIs, and also Civica RX for product finishing. Ampac has already moved into some space in Petersburg. Indeed, it's the old, for those of you who've been around the game for a while, the old Boehringer Ingelheim space, 200 acres of space and production facilities in Petersburg. It's been dormant since 2014 due to, ironically, competition from foreign-made drug ingredients at the time. There'll also be a new structure that's going to be developed for Civica RX, which is building a $124 million, 120,000 square foot plant for the pharmaceutical finishing elements of the partnership for making the vials and syringes for injectable medicines and so forth. Civica itself is a social welfare organization whose goal is to reduce chronic generic drug shortages in the United States. There's also going to be even more physical growth on that campus. With Flow is actually going to grow and expand adjacent in the space to Ampac. They haven't put out the square footage yet, but they are definitely making plans to grow their own space on what they hope will become an advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing campus in Virginia that'll be the locus of API manufacturing in the U.S.
Thank you, John. Really excited to see how that further develops in Petersburg. Really, really exciting work across the region. Speaking of the region, we've heard today about Virginia and Maryland, and in DC, we've seen some really great growth as well with the new Children's Research and Innovation Campus in DC, where they're being joined also by J Labs, Virginia Tech, and BARDA. So I'd like to ask Matt, can you talk about the potential for further life science growth in the DC area?
Amy, it's an interesting question. We've done a lot of study specifically of that Walter Reed campus and the adaptive reuse of a lot of those buildings, and maybe even the ability to leverage what J Labs is doing there, which is just a world-renowned, great organization that really has a lot of innovation. As well as, you mentioned BARDA, you mentioned Virginia Tech. Howard is also there on that campus. And, I think there's definitely opportunity there. We haven't really seen the growth just yet, but as things start to spin out, as more and more people seek out an urban alternative in the market for facilities specifically, and you'll hear this kind of cliched almost in the market, recruiting and retention. I think there is a void in the market right now that needs to be filled with more urban, vibrant, amenity-rich options in the market. And so that DC hub could definitely bring that about.
I couldn't agree more, Matt. Really, really an exciting place for growth. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate it. All right, so I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk about financing. So I'm going to turn to James. Can you talk about some of the financing models for lab space products? And when we're or projects, I apologize. And when we're thinking about some of these small early stage companies, what, in your opinion, is some of the best models to support their growth?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of a tough question for me because for us, our targets with Progress Lab, given the size of our deliveries, we tend to deal with later stage companies, established pharmas or CMOs ready for production. So from that end, it tends to make the financing of their costly improvements easier. We are fully self-capitalized to handle the financing needs for those improvements. But we typically deal with those on a deal by deal, tenant by tenant basis. Matt is probably a little bit more well-versed in dealing with earlier stage companies since he represents a lot of them across the region. But from an outsider looking in, who's not really in tune with how well they do it, but the most successful landlord dealing with early stage companies and dealing with the cost of their improvements and navigating that process has traditionally in this market been Alexandria Real Estate. They have a VC model, they have a financing model that really seems to work well for the earlier stage companies looking to go, from 1,500 feet or 5,000 feet to 10 to 15 or 20,000 feet. But primarily for us, on the biomanufacturing side, as I said earlier, we're dealing with the later stage companies or the companies that already have products available and they need to get them out to the market from a production standpoint. But as a region, we're one of the highest VC recipients of funds in the region. Where obviously there's economic programs with all the various municipalities. There's funding and grant funding from the federal side. There's always all these various resources that are available to continue fostering the growth within this bio cluster itself. So there's tremendous amount of opportunities out there for all of those. I don't know if you have anything to add along those lines, Matt, or not.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree with everything you said. The way that a lot of early stage, typically venture funded companies view that tenant improvement allowance is as almost like a secondary financing vehicle. They'll use it to offset those initial capital costs to build the facilities. In some cases where you're building really involved clean space or preclinical space or something along those lines that has a high dollar amount associated with it, it somewhat offsets those. But when you're talking about basic R&D office type lab environments, I think it goes a long way, especially for the earlier stage groups that are really trying to preserve their capital to maximize their operations. A lot of the groups that are on the R&D side and they're trying to move their product from A to Z through FDA as quickly and as efficiently as possible. It really helps to keep that money pointed in the direction of hiring, pointing in the direction of operations, clinical trials, et cetera. So yeah, and it's an interesting model when you think about it. James touched on it a second ago. Alexandria and landlords that are really focused on providing those funds on the front end act more as a VC than they do a landlord in some cases. Right. It's a really interesting and innovative model.
Jim, I really appreciate your insights on this topic, and I know others will as well. Financing is obviously important to these companies and being able to move these projects along, but also workforce. And so being able to attract talent and retain talent is really critical for these companies' growth. Matt, can you talk about how important a sense of place is for labs where you're considering to build, and where should we be looking?
We again study this day in and day out, really trying to figure out where the trends are going. And what you find is there's not a right place for everyone. And so depending on what element of science you're doing, if you're a contract organization versus a cutting edge therapeutic group, or if you're a manufacturing looking for that type of functionality, that'll somewhat, the function really dictates at some level location. And then beyond that, again, the cliche of recruiting and retention really plays into, do you want to be closer to your technical workforce, closer to your executive workforce? Do you want a place that's accessible to public transit or walkable restaurants and other amenities? And so you kind of have to play each one of those out on a case-by-case basis. But I would say we're starting to see things develop in stretching beyond the current hubs into to allow for more diverse options in Frederick. We're also seeing things in North Bethesda. We're seeing obviously Northern Virginia. But what it's doing is it's giving us an edge to compete with the other markets. And so let's take Cambridge, for example, which is kind of the pinnacle life science market. Having the ability to create a trophy class building for a headquarters is invaluable to draw somebody to this area or to help somebody grow in this area and then recruit from other areas. And so, just as an example, 935 Pros is looking to achieve that with trophy class type of building and presence and amenities, et cetera. So I would say things are going to move south as the life science hubs kind of fill up and development pipelines start to back up. We'll see things with more of a Bethesda address, which ironically, if you go to any other market, is how Maryland is really regarded, or how the DC area is really regarded. Everybody thinks of science, they think of Bethesda because of the NIH, but ironically, there's no lab space there right now. So, I think things will probably move that direction for more of the headquarters type facilities, while still maintaining a strong presence in the core hubs that we have right now. And then functional facilities will start to trend a little further north for those high bay, big box or big footprint type of facilities where you can do a lot more functionally.
So Matt, so you see the trend going more towards vertical trophy space in amenity rich, transit oriented areas. So that's essentially see where that is going.
I think those options will really help to diversify the market and really help us to compete with other markets that have that offering.
Great.
Lots of things to consider as this region develops. James, I'd like to turn to you. And I had mentioned at the beginning that we we're going to talk about some challenges. So the takeaway from this is how can we work together, right? So as you are delivering these new buildings, what are some of the challenges that developers face as you have these companies that have rapidly developing needs to deliver innovative solutions? And how can we work together to overcome some of the challenges that you face as a developer?
Well, Amy, for me as a developer, and trying to deliver these buildings to meet the demand, historically, the biggest challenge that we face is speed to market. We need to deliver these projects yesterday in order to satisfy what we see right now as the current level of demand. Historically, the municipalities in our region have been a challenge from a timing and cost standpoint to get approvals. However, I feel strongly that all the municipalities in the region have recognized the economic impact of the life sciences, and they've all adjusted. Many have implemented fast tracking into their processes just to continue to allow the sector to grow. Montgomery County, by way of example, has a sub 5% vacancy rate in lab space. Most would see this as a huge victory. And Montgomery County certainly touts it as a big victory. However, given the current level of tenants in the market and the demand for space, this is a problem. And I think Montgomery County has recognized that it's a problem. So projects like ours that are coming out on a speculative basis, they've put some processes in place. I mean, it's not a perfect science, but they've put some processes in place in order to allow us to get out ahead of it and deliver these projects ahead of it. So, which is a good thing. And as I said, historically, it's been the biggest challenge for us. Because quite frankly, if we don't meet this demand, there are so many emerging biohubs across the country. Whether that's the established ones like, Boston and Raleigh-Durham or Philadelphia or San Diego, or some of the more emerging ones like Pittsburgh, Houston, or Austin. If we can't meet the demand here with space available to these tenants that need it now, they're going to naturally just migrate to those other areas. So we will essentially lose the demand that's in front of us right now. So I think, us working with the various municipalities in order to deliver these spaces for the tenants' needs is really the biggest challenge. And I think, as I said, the municipalities and the leaders are recognizing that as the challenge and kind of coming up with some creative ways to mitigate that. As it relates to delivering health innovative solutions, within our current projects that are actually already approved and delivering, what we're delivering is essentially a biomanufacturing and lab ready shell, which is an enhanced shell to accept the particular needs of our tenants, as well as evolve with the rapid innovations in science of biomanufacturing. And our team of experts that we've assembled is prepared to deliver the ultimate solution based on what those demands and science requirements are of our tenants. But that's kind of a hand-in-hand process between our team and the tenants' teams on delivering those solutions. But I think we're managing our way through those challenges, and hopefully we'll get to where we can continue to grow our sector here in the Capital Region.
Thanks so much, James. And it's really great to hear that the municipalities are recognizing the need to quickly move on these projects, so that we can capture these companies in the biohealth capital region, which is a great place to grow and thrive.
Sure.
In the beginning, I had also mentioned that we would talk about resources, and James actually alluded earlier about some of the resources and incentives that are available to companies. For example, in Maryland, they have the Biotechnology Investment Tax Credit, as well as TEDCO seed investment funds to support seed stage and early stage companies, as well as a slew of other tax credits to facilitate growth in the state. And I know DC also has some additional incentives as well. So I'd like to turn my question to John. Can you talk about some of the local and state resources available in Virginia for building out the life science space?
Surely. And I guess I need to do a little bit of a shameless plug for Virginia. We are a region, but Virginia was recently awarded by CNBC as the #1 top state in the nation for business this past July. It's the 3rd year running. And of course, not only Virginia, but Maryland, DC, all states have tax credits and the like. But I want to tell you about a couple specifically that Virginia offers to our bioscience companies. We call these two sides of the coin a regular R&D expense tax credit and a major R&D expense tax credit. The regular R&D expense tax credit here in Virginia is for a corporation or an individual and corporate income tax credit for taxpayers with Virginia qualified research and development expenses under $5 million for a taxable year, and a credit can be between $45,000 and $60,000. The major R&D expense tax credit here in Virginia is for businesses with qualified research and development expenses in excess of $5 million for the taxable year. And the tax credit there can equal either, or actually it's a both. 10% of the taxable year's qualified R&D expenses and 50% of the average of the previous 3 years' expenses. So it can really add up quite quickly as you're here in Virginia and doing your business. And further, any unutilized amount of credit that you get on an annual basis can be carried forward up to 10 succeeding years. So it's a very good tax credit for those major R&D expenses above $5 million in Virginia. And finally, there's an associated tax credit that many of our companies take advantage of. It's called the Major Business Facility Jobs Tax Credit. And that's where companies locating or expanding in Virginia, as we post them from other parts of the country, they're eligible to receive a $1,000 income tax credit for each new full-time job created here in Virginia, with certain categories applied there. So lots of great incentives, many others that can be listed here, but those are the main ones that are pretty much targeted at our growing biotech companies and the expanding footprint here in Virginia.
Thanks so much, John, and really appreciate that Virginia, Maryland, and DC, right, are all very committed to attracting and allowing these companies to grow in our region. So really excited to hear about some of the specific programs that you mentioned here. So in addition to local and state resources, there's also been significant private and federal demand driving construction of new facilities in the DMV. If you tuned in yesterday to our federal funding panel, you heard about the billions of dollars in federal funding from a variety of sources, including NIH, EDA, Department of Commerce, NSF, driving that demand further. So I'd like to ask each of you, or whomever would like to answer, can you share your thoughts about the potential impact this could have for the biohealth capital region? Go ahead, Matt.
Great, thanks. Sure, yeah, I'll jump in on this. I think in terms of NIH funding, the headlines are really I don't know, intriguing. They're when you see that much money flowing into the market, I think it's an element of the growth, but it's usually not the main driver, unfortunately. And the reason being that funding is so portable. It goes all over the country, if not the world. And we see it kind of spread all over as opposed to just localized here. And so, you know, the other numbers that we watch, not to diverge from the question, but are obviously the VC numbers, the venture capital numbers, and then also the M&A activity and public markets. And watching those in conjunction with the government funds, I think it makes for a better picture for the growth and being able to see exactly what's going on in the market. You know, and there's reason for excitement in the VC and M&A numbers as well. I mean, we've seen almost over $1 billion so far in 2021 here in the DC area for VC in life sciences funding. And then in the M&A side of things, I mean, we've seen almost $3.5 billion worth of M&A that's happened in this area. And so it's brought some big names to the area and that sort of thing. I think another thing, just touching back on the government side of it, is the presence of the NIH. And we see a lot of people anchor their kind of perception of this market on the NIH. It is a government agency, but they grow into the market. So they have annexes all over the DMV, and they are a big user of space. And so beyond what they're doing on the campus, which, you know, they're growing again, I'm not sure if they're just going to start stacking buildings on top of one another, but they have a lot of leases in the commercial market as well. And so we see that as an element of growth here. You know, strong talent pool that comes with that large PhD talent pool that continues to feed into the private markets as well.
Thanks so much, Matt. James, did you have any comments you'd like to make?
Well, yeah, Matt is well said, Matt, and Matt does and has tracked this for a very long time, and you know, he was a part of the life science industry from just as a little baby. And now we're starting to mature. So it's, but you know, layered on top of that existing growth has obviously been COVID-19. 4 out of the 10 largest recipients of COVID-19 money are located here in the region. I think we saw in 2020, we saw $8 billion infused into companies within our region, which is real. And a lot of the growth, immediate growth that we're seeing now is directly tied to that. And, we have COVID-19 now, and it's very real on our minds, but, sitting in Bethesda and NIH is a team of guys preventing COVID-20 from, happening, or the next pandemic from happening. And so that'll be additional funding layer that's thrown on top of our region that we just don't know yet, but we know it's coming. So I think, here in the DMV, obviously with the federal institutions, with NIH and FDA, I mean, we are well anchored to be great recipients of that. And so as a region and as a developer, and we have to create facilities and create an avenue for that growth to happen. And obviously with Progress Labs, that's what we're trying to do. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
I couldn't agree more. And John, do you have any thoughts to round out this question?
Just very quickly, I think that the potential impact that all these great sources of funding can have are already being seen, attracting more opportunities for the region to become a nationwide leader on certain issues. So for instance, the connected DMV opportunity that's here in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, is a collaboration that ultimately wants to build a strategic stockpile for monoclonal antibodies for use in future pandemics. All these new resources that you're seeing piled into not just the region, but across the nation, can be a source of money to get important collaborative activities grounded and fixed here in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and the Biocapital region, and then of course can come to the benefit of not just the country, but the world as well.
Thank you, John. And I just love that word collaborative, because I think it is, takes a team, a village to be able to accomplish this. Thank you. All right. Well, we have a few more minutes and wanted to give each of you a chance to share some final thoughts that you would like to share with our audience today about maybe why companies should consider the Biohealth Capital Region, or any other thoughts that you have as we conclude. John, let's start with you.
Sure, and I'm pretty sure my co-panelists will agree and probably expand. Location, right? That's their term. But the nearness geographically to all of the appropriate agencies in our space, all of the great talent that's here, the universities, the research universities, the outstanding medical and healthcare systems that you can find in this region. I dare say you probably can't find it anywhere else in a geographic region this size, with so many assets crammed into it, and really cost effectiveness. When we're talking comparatively with other regions, you need to check this region out before, preferably, the more expensive regions, but you'll probably end up here anyway. So those are kind of my observations, and hopefully my panelists will agree with that.
Thank you, John. James?
Yeah, John, you're spot on. We obviously don't have the beaches of San Diego, but we got all the intangibles.
Virginia Beach, hey.
We got Virginia Beach. That's right. But we have all the intangibles to fuel the life science sector. So and everything that you alluded to, from the federal institutions to the academic institutions, to already an established biocluster and a reputation that is ranked in the top of the country. So yeah, we have those intangibles to fuel anybody's innovation or research or science, and hopefully we're delivering on the facilities to fuel that growth. So yeah, it's an amazing place to be. It's an amazing time. It's an amazing quality of life here in our capital region, and so we're just very, very excited to see how it continues.
Thank you, James. Matt?
Yeah, I guess just to wrap us up, I think we're definitely seeing the BioCapital Health region grow and mature in terms of real estate facilities, workforce, funding, technologies. It's a really exciting time. And so, you know, we're seeing new options that can help with both the functional and aesthetic pieces of the puzzle, and more diverse developers and providers that are you know, providing these solutions for facilities for the tenants. And so, you know, I think it's a growing market, and it's an exciting dynamic right now in DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Gentlemen, I couldn't agree with your sentiments more. I want to thank you all for a really insightful discussion. Also, really recognizing the impressive growth in the biohealth capital region, and just thank you all for the really amazing contributions that you're making to grow our region. So thank you, and I hope everyone tuning in today is enjoying the Biohealth Capital Region Forum.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.